Not too
There we
much.
go. Hi. Welcome, everybody. This is the Fireside Chat. My name is Nick Pollack. And today, joining me live on YouTube, this is wild. My gosh, it is the wonderful Paul Sporer. Hey, Paul.
How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. I'm great that we've got this lovely look now. We are going to be recording this,
Mm-hmm.
putting them on YouTube every week. We're also sending it off to Twitter right now, which is pretty fun. So we see everybody leaving their comments. Make sure you do that. And hang out with by the fire with us today. And it's a Tuesday. We're back to the normal schedule. My gosh,
Right.
we did
Took
it.
a little while, but we did it. We're back on schedule. Things
That's
are
right.
going fine. And it's nice, the
We're going fine.
the
Oh
fire
man,
is
tell me how you
soothing.
really feel. Oh
There's
my
a
gosh.
capital F, bolded, underlined. Yeah, it's
Hmm.
not going as well over here, but we're good. We're
Hey,
getting through.
we're gonna be good. You
I
know, we
love that
yeah.
Bailey Ober got the pick this week. I'm a big Bailey Ober head myself.
Oh yeah, you're talking about not the selection, but the actual picture at
Picture,
the
excuse me.
top
Yes,
of
yes, yes.
the list this week. It's right. It's kind of amazing. The first start of the year, I had a Twitter account who's very aggressive, uh, trying to make fun of me for that, saying, "Oh no, Bailey Ober isn't good."
That's honestly like that's like just put it all aside as far as like memeing on them or whatever. That's
I
so
know. It's so
devastatingly
dumb.
embarrassing that anybody would think that that was like
I'm sorry to even bring it up.
worth
Yeah,
doing after
yeah.
a game,
It's
right? And this
but what?
was
Yeah.
as telegraphed as it gets. Like, don't pay too much attention to this. He's going to take a month and a half to run it off of his ERA, and then he
Mm,
faced Kansas City again, and they ran it back up after he had shaved it down to 433. They pushed it back up to 489. Here he is at
well,
352. I didn't mean to go on a Ober soliloquy, but I just love what
well,
he's done this year
I
outside
mean,
of those
it's
two bad starts.
fantastic. If you think about Billy Ober last year, he still had a phenomenal changeup, and four seamer extension is really good, and he's so good at locating that upstairs. The real addition has been a much better cutter and slider combination that he does keep glove side really well. PLV loved him. PLBot had him in the top 20 entering this year.
I believe it. Justin Mason did too, by
And
the
what's
way.
crazy to me is that wasn't even knowing about the addition the better
Right.
slider and cutter. So lovely stuff there from Bailey Ober. He gets a nod this week. And it's actually funny. At the beginning of the year, I said, Bailey Ober, you are the guardian of the aces going to ace stack. I don't really ever think you're going to get there. You're just really sturdy. Do the
Really?
Bailey special. 6 innings, 1 run, 2 run, 6 Ks or so. That's nice, but it's not like ace. And then all of a sudden he starts becoming an ace. I'm like, oh, well, never mind. Okay.
Where'd you have him coming into the year?
I had Bailey Ober like 27,
Okay,
something
so
like
yeah, we're
that.
close. I had him 22. I think, like I said,
Yeah,
Justin had, I
I
think,
don't
had
remember
him
what it got
inside his
to
top
by the end of
20.
it. Sounds about right.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
big Ogre fans, love it.
just really good, right? And it's gonna
Yeah.
his ERA was gonna kind of depend on the homers. It is running a little high
Mm,
relative to everything else he's done because of the homers at
yeah,
352. But anyway, we're not here necessarily to dive in specifically on him, but we are going to be looking at
sure.
your list this week. I've got my rankings. If you're listening to this live right now, they're going to be out later today. If you're listening to this anytime after Tuesday August 13th, they're already out. Go check out the August update. But I can reference mine behind the scenes here, but I want to dig in on some of Nick's stuff here. So anything else you got to get going, then you can pass the reins over here and I'll start in on
No,
guys. But I'm sure we
we're
got
gonna
some
do a
other.
fireside chat here, and I'm excited because, this is great. This is kind of the heart of a lot of we do with the fireside is, yes, it did start with Castilla, how do we assess this? But then it turned into, hey, cool, where are we different? And that really highlights, I think, really good discussion on these players. So I put out my rankings yesterday, right, as I do every week. And Spora, you have yours later today. So we're gonna get a
Right.
sneak preview on that. And yeah, let's tell me where I'm wrong. What am I doing wrong here, Spora? What
No,
we
it's
got?
not even so much that you're wrong. I want to better
I'm messing
understand
around.
you a
I
bit.
just like saying it like that. I'm
No, I know.
encouraging it. I'm
I
saying,
know, because
yeah.
I
Let's
feel the
go.
same way too. I like hearing how people feel about my ranks
Yeah,
and where I can defend myself or maybe relent a little bit on something.
sure.
I want to start with somebody that we've always been fans of. We've even
Mhm.
gender bended a little bit and made ourselves gal and gals
Mm,
at many times. And yet this is less of a disagreement and more of just kind of I want to talk about it too because I'm
sure.
also quite a bit lower on Zach Gallen than I've been in quite a while. You got him
Yeah.
37th right now. I got him right around there, just a few spots ahead of you at 34. And again, one of the lower spots I've had Zach Gallen in quite some time. How are we feeling down the stretch? Because the team's going up. He's either kind of plateauing or even dipping a little bit at times. So you'd think he'd be a key reason why they've been so successful. It's actually been the offense. So he's still going to get those win opportunities. But are we trusting Zach Gallen less than we have in what, I don't know, 2 years, 18 months at least?
Right. This is a large valley for Zach Allen. And if you look at it across his last 8 games, Zach Allen is a 17% K rate, 10% walk rate, with a 5.01 ERA and a 160 WHIP.
That whip is what terrifies. An ERA I can
Yeah.
erase in a short sample, one bad outing. 160 whip.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. The
Punishing.
four-seamer to me is really the one that is lagging behind. 41% ICR. It's getting hit decently. The CSW is just at 24%. This is supposed to be a 24% called strike rate pitch alone. And having a 481 PLV four-seamer that, yes, 451 BABIP, don't get me wrong, that's probably going to not stick around, a hit luck of +8 on it. But he's not really locating this pitch as well as he normally does. It's not as much low location. Actually, it's even more high location in this time, 36% versus low location of 33. And when I think about Zach Gallen, especially what he was doing in the postseason last year, Zach Gallen was throwing low four-seamers and then these curveballs and changeups right underneath it, and guys just do not know which it is. You know, they talk about the death ball with Jordan Montgomery. It's really with Zach Gallen. And without that low location, without that four-seamer sticking and getting those called strikes, it then makes the whole thing worse because guys are able to spit more on the changeup and the curve, and the whole thing just kind of goes awry. So I'm a little worried about that. Eric Smolsky also made the point about Zach Gallen getting pushed more this year, and maybe that's an effect it's having on him. I'm sorry, last year, and then now we're seeing the ramifications of about 240 innings.
And that was my primary concern with him this year, which had me putting him at 17. Or no, actually, I think I had him even lower than that to start the year with Zach Gallen, and then eventually kind of worked him back up as he was looking good. Yeah, I had him 19, which was actually relatively low in the market of Zach Gallen because of the volume. I was just worried about how that was going to play out. It doesn't hurt everybody, but it was my concern and enough of a tiebreaker to kind of push him down a little bit relative to the aces that I trusted up there, Gallen.
Yeah, absolutely. And the curveball has been good in this time. It's been the one consistent thing. I've seen games where Zach Gallen has had his changeup, but that's inconsistent. 50% ICR in these 8 games is just not what he's looking for from it. So he needs to get a little bit more out of both the fastball and the changeup for him to really take over again. And it's not possible that it's not impossible for Gallen to actually recover and be good, but there's a lot more haze, and the landscape, I gotta say, for pitching right now is just so weird. Sometimes I do these lists, I'm like, oh, this is pretty clear cut. I feel good about this. Is these guys, isn't that? I think for me, going from like, I don't know, 30, 32 or so, 33, all the way to about 60 was just what?
Because so much changes start with these guys. You go a couple starts, and all of a sudden, you don't feel nearly as confident as you did. Things vary quite a bit, and we talk about these globs of talent. I totally feel it, and they get thicker at this time of year where I'm really not having that much difference on guys. But I wanted to hit on Gallen there just because he's somebody that we've been trusting now for a while, that the trust is definitely dented. It's not gone. You're still starting him in a lot of spots, but you're getting in some of those shallower leagues where you're piling on maybe some of these pickups in season and some guys emerging, and you might find weeks where you're not starting Gallen, and that's fine. You don't have to feel bad about that.
It is weird. He certainly is a tiara guy. And like if he has a start where it's just, this is the old Zach Gallen you're going to believe.
Right. And that's why you're not cutting him. If you're benching Gallen anywhere, if you're benching Gallen anywhere, that is okay, but you're not cutting him anywhere because yes, in a snap, he could be right back in that top 15 sort of caliber where we're trusting Zach Gallen.
Absolutely. Yep.
As I look through your top 20, I just really don't have much that really gets me. And we spend a lot of time on it anyway, so I'm kind of glad that there's nobody I really want to press on because they get a plenty of love, right? Maybe Luis Heel, another tough one yesterday.
Yeah, I forgot he was 20. I really
inning.
consider top 20 as like tier 1 and tier 2. Tier 3 is a weird tier of just, hey, we know that you can easily be an ace, but do I feel better about a lot of these tier 4 guys right now? Maybe like Carlos Rodon, I do. I might, and I actually think said in the notes, like, pretty much all of these guys can be further down next week, like out of this tier. I think, I mean, I have all of these here in this way because just give me one amazing start. I'm like, okay, cool, everything's wonderful and great. And
Right.
there is a ceiling that's higher than tier 4 in my view. Yeah, Luis Heel is going to likely be in tier 5 next week, unless he really pulls it together in the next one. There is a thought of, I had a good conversation while making the list on Monday with Perrin in chat, talking about in the second half of the year, I overrate young guys and underrate old guys. And I had some pushback on that because I think it's too broad of a label. However, there is a conversation to be had about, say, like Luis Heel, Paul Skeens, and think, okay, is there something I should just add a little extra bonus to older guys versus young guys at this point, just from data saying like, hey, they generally can't handle the fatigue as well? It's possible. We have seen guys like Kirby and Gilbert do well and when they were pushed in their first seasons, for example. We saw Alec Manoa, believe it or not, in that second season, getting 190 plus innings and doing really well. We see guys do this, and it's not necessarily just because they're young that it's a thing, but maybe I should be moving guys down quicker when there's some sign of degradation, if they are younger.
That's exactly something I'm debating on with Luis Heel right now as I looked at it. And even my note yesterday in the SP chart, when I was obviously still starting him, I was never considering benching him against the White Sox there. But I pointed out that we did see some walks in the last two, and that might be a sign of some fatigue. Eight walks in the last two could be a fatigue indicator. Nine walks in the 5 starts before that. Something to monitor, but no shot I'd skip this start. That's what I said about Luis Heel yesterday. We get a 30-pitch first inning and a pretty uninspiring start. It was only 2 walks, but I'm a little uneasy. And yeah, I think he drops off of this now. That's 3 starts in a row. I was willing to give him the White Sox start to show me like, no, I'm still Luis Heel. Watch this. Sure. Easy, easy to start this week. I'm not sitting him Cleveland, Colorado at home next week. It's a 2-step. But do I have a little less confidence? Yes. I am a little concerned that 2-step could go sideways.
And I appreciate you, Kyle Bland, answering Alex's question in the chat there. It's a fastball run value, if you're wondering. By the way, thanks for joining us by the fire. Is about results. So the results on Gallon's 4-seamer is worse. And there you go. That's pretty straightforward there. And also with Taj Bradley, too, can pretty much say the same thing. Exactly.
Was going to bring him up. Now, he had a much tougher situation against Houston, but another OBI situation, which is 1 bad inning. It afflicts.
OBI. I feel like I like that.
I was on a baseball. I was on a softball team that was called that. So you're free to use that.
I kind of love that. It was an OB. Oh man.
I think it affects young guys way more often, and they can bounce back from it. And I am encouraged when they do. Like if that's the only bad inning, sure. But if it keeps happening, it's starting to become a problem. And I think that's where we're at a little bit right now with Taj Bradley. Although I will say in the St. Louis start, it was a little bit more spread out. This was the 4-run inning yesterday against Houston. Now as we spin it forward down the stretch here, is he moving off of that? Are you less eager to start Taj Bradley, or do you still feel pretty good? Because you got him 23. Does he move outside the top 30? Where are we at after the Houston start?
It's really tough because so think of it this way. I'm very much, and I say this often, my list is grouped. I think the only way you can actually do a proper ranking is you have to group. Sporer does it as well for his effectively, and for me, it's about what are the skill sets that are similar, and trying to group them together and saying, well, I generally focus on this one or that one. So there are times that means at the bottom of one tier and the top of the next one aren't quite in the right order or so. And it does mean a guy like Taj Bradley, he doesn't really fit with tier 4. He fits with tier 5. So sometimes you might see more drastic moves in between 2 tiers. So then at 23, Taj Bradley could go all the way to like 35 or something like that. You go, oh my gosh, it's 12 spots. It's ridiculous. Well, no, because he's just not that. He's not classified as a secure 6-inning lower strikeout ceiling guy that a lot of tier 4 guys are. So with Taj Bradley, he's all about 4-seamers and splitters now, which I love. I saw this against the Cubs and I was like, oh no, there it is. Finally, I've been waiting for some approach that works that isn't just like 4-seamers and cutters and curves, because the cutter and curve is so unreliable.
Exactly.
And it's weird them saying, hey, splitters are right, but as long as the strike rate is high enough and he consistently is above 65% strikes on that splitter, then I'm okay with this. The problem is that the last 2 starts in particular for Taj Bradley, I mean, obviously one big one bad inning, or one big inning. I don't know what actually the B is there.
Well,
But
it was
that
one bad, but one big
bad,
works. Yeah,
one big,
both
yeah.
work.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna go with bad. That's good. Is that Taj Bradley's command isn't separating between the four seamer and the splitter enough.
Okay.
And Taj Bradley being chaotic is actually better than what we saw yesterday, which was a clump in the middle in YM lock, which is middle height. So you have high location, low location, and YM lock. So it's the y-axis, the middle of it. And that's where all of his hits were allowed, all 8 of them. And
Wow.
he didn't spread it out. You didn't have four seamers more upstairs. You didn't have splitters. Actually, I would take splitters middle and down. But they were all just pretty much middle. So, okay, don't do that.
We're not loving that as much.
No, so that's a little more concerning. But I think this is a better version than the no strikes version of Taj Bradley.
Right.
The donut version where you just have a dot in the middle and then a circle outside the zone.
Exactly. And then that's just
like either down the middle or way out of the zone. And
everyone just spits on everything until they get there down the middle, and then they cook him when he walks 2 and then gives up a 2-run double. You know, that was the Taj Bradley of last year.
And the last 3 starts indicate. But yeah, I mean, you got to keep rolling with it, really, at the end of the day.
That's the thing too. And that becomes kind of how it is sometimes in a lot of situations. It's like, yes, we have some concerns about this, that, or the other, but is it actionable? And in the end, for me with Taj Bradley and Luis Heel, it's not really. Again, you start getting in a 10-teamer, 8-teamer where your staffs are deep enough. Sure, you can skip some starts with Bradley and Heel, but there's no cut anywhere. I cannot find a cut for either of them anywhere right now. The talent is just too rich for them and not deep enough on the waiver pool of really any league. So I'm holding both those guys there through these little struggles just to kind of see where it goes.
Yep.
Back to the list here. And I'm looking at somebody like a Robbie Ray real quick, and I just want to get a temperature check on him because he came out guns blazing. Everyone's like, holy smokes, look at this. Here we are, Robbie Ray's back. And it's like, okay, tap the brakes. I know we want to be excited about somebody. Mr. Tight Pants cooking up the Dodgers was great for 5 no-hit innings. Immediately gets cooked by Oakland because that's the way baseball is.
Yeah,
but then 2 very good starts since. At Cincy and home to Detroit. Neither opponent terribly difficult, but he cut him up the way he should. We're 3 up, 1 down for Robbie Ray. Do we feel pretty good about him as a reliable all formats asset down the stretch?
Yeah. So what's so funny with Robbie Ray is he had this amazing start that we're like executing everything.
Yeah. You're talking about the Dodgers.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Right. And then the Athletics was weird. And then he did it again in his 3rd start. And I'm just like, oh, cool. This is, I think, what you're going to be. And so I watched all of this one against Atlanta and it was painful.
Wait.
The line was good.
He hasn't faced which Atlanta one?
Oh, wait, I think it was Atlanta. Who was in his last start then?
Detroit.
Detroit. It was Detroit. I realized Detroit. Oh my God.
Yeah, Detroit at home.
That must be why. Okay, so I apologize. Robbie Ray against Detroit. It was a lot of times where he could not execute the pitch he needed.
And the Tigers could not take advantage. Believe me.
Right.
I'm sitting there
and
angry.
It's like 0-2, and then he bounces a slider, you know, and then it's a fastball. They foul it off, and it finally gets there or something like that. It was very inefficient. And he would get to 2 strikes very well. And overall, if you just look at the strike zone plot for Robbie Ray, it's actually pretty good of up in glove side, 4-seamers and sliders underneath it really effectively. There are some curves in there too that surprised. It didn't feel like a guy doing what he wanted to do. And I expressed it a lot. If you watch a pitcher, like I watched Pablo Lopez yesterday, and I watched the guy that was very much just in control of himself. Yes, he had some bounced breakers and here and there, but like this was a guy, if he needs to throw a strike, he's going to throw a strike. He's going to execute generally to what he wants to do. When he doesn't, it feels more like an exception. With Robbie Ray, you could feel his struggles. You had anxiety watching it. So that isn't cool. You don't want that. And you don't need to be an analyst to feel that. I implore all of you, take inventory on yourself when you're watching these guys. So I'm hesitant to raise Robbie Ray further than this.
I think
the
that's
fact that he
totally
still had a great
fair.
start with that. But yeah, I'm probably just going to keep him where he is next week.
Yeah, I think 22 is completely fine. That is showing some aggressiveness in him that I think is warranted based on the upside that he can reach. That park gives him a little extra cushion. That team is actually playing well and giving some support right now, which is not necessarily what we expected out of the Giants, but they've stabilized the back end of the bullpen with Ryan Walker as the closer there. So I feel pretty good. I'm a little bit lower on him. I think I have him at 26, Robbie Ray, versus your 22, but we're splitting hairs at that point.
Yeah,
I
there
do
you
not
go.
have any
Absolutely.
reservations about where you've got him.
Sure.
Okay, so let's jump down a bit. And let's talk about a guy again that we're not necessarily different on, but I'm curious where you're standing. 3 starts in now with Yusei Kikuchi in Houston.
Oh, man.
Are we buying the Arsenal change? Is it, because I know you've been a fan. You know that the stuff is great. We've been talking about how great his stuff is. It keeps coming up just short. And 2 starts, it's only 2 starts, but the 2 starts with Houston so far have been great. Are they about to unlock something here?
To be honest, you completely took me by surprise. Like 3 starts. Wait, what am I?
Sorry, sorry.
No, I mean, I've messed up 20 million times. So I actually have a lot of thoughts about Yusei Kikuchi, and we're going to talk about those after this break. So now you guys get the live. Look at this. This is what we do. We celebrate it. It's great. I took it down the notes, and then we go to it. Okay. Yusei Kikuchi is looking really good with the Astros. The first start was sliders and changeups down. Loved it. The 4-seamer is still elite, and it's great, and I love this. He shelved the curve, which is interesting because I think the curve last year actually added a strike pitch that, yes, it did have a bad results on it. However, getting strikes is still a major element of it. And yes, there were sometimes he got burned on it, but it wasn't a major detriment. In some ways, I would even argue that it was a positive for him in the full basket of it. Like, talks about having a mediocre third pitch actually helps you, even if the results are not great. So the changeup has been this thing that I've wrestled with, just like I did with Blake Snell's in 2021. And in the case that he's going to it and then leaving it and going back to it, and it is more often negative for Kikuchi than positive. The first start with the Astros, it was great. The second one, terrible. And that was a real problem for him in that last start. He still got away with it. He's still good. But seeing, I think it was 3 out of 12 strikes on changeups. That's not quite it. So I think there is still something to be tweaked here with Kikuchi. However, the fact of the matter is Kikuchi is on a better club, a winning ball club. Yes, it is a worse home field. I haven't done the analysis of it yet, but I want to believe that the matchups he has should be better moving forward than with the Jays had to deal with the AL East down the stretch.
I would certainly think so, just by virtue of that switch.
It's possible that it's not, but regardless, Kikuchi's throwing 4-seamers well and sliders well. And those are the 2 that are the most important, I think, inside of his arsenal. I'm a huge fan of this. I'm very much in on Kikuchi. I'm waiting really for that one more start to kind of get that momentum back going, where I'm like, oh boy, pumping my fist, another 10 strikeout game. And that's kind of what I'm waiting for. And I'm actually curious, would you have him above or below Garrett Crochet?
I actually have him above because that was actually who I was going to bring up next. So let's loop that in. They're right by each other. I've got Kikuchi 37. I have Crochet at 40 right now because I'm scared. I don't know where to trust it.
Understandably so. I get it. I wrestled so long with this one.
Again, it's a cut nowhere. You cannot cut this kind of talent.
Right.
But how confident are you in starting him right now? Is this not just going to be like a 3 to 5 inning grab bag the rest of the way? We have no clue. We have no clue.
It's so annoying because the last game to me was the game to see, and it just happens to be the one where he's rusty.
Right.
And I'm like, oh God, now we need to wait another week to find out. And I have him at 33 because I think we can recognize that between him, Kikuchi, Brian Wu, Zach Gallen, Strellenbach, Tanner Bybee, Hunter Brown, etc. Like Crochet is the highest ceiling.
We got a really similar group there, by the way. That was crazy how similar that group is.
Because we're smart people, great minds, baby.
That's right.
Fireside, bring it down. So Crochet is obviously a top 10 guy. If we knew that he was going 6 innings, there's no limitations on him. Correct. I'd say top 10. Anyone that wants to read into his last start, like, oh no, it's all the regression. He's not very good. Stop that. Just stop that. The cutter was thrown at bad times. It got hit. He didn't execute a good cutter. It wasn't there that game. It has been there for him all year. 4-seamer still absurdly hard to hit. It's kind of hilarious watching him just blow these 97-mile-per-hour fastballs past guys, because you remember, wait, I've seen other 97 and they don't do that. He has elite extension too, so it's not just like 97, 100. It's crazy. So Garrett Crochet is really good. Okay, guys, and I just can't get this out of my head that like the narrative, the story of his innings restrictions, I really believed in this last one he would have been let go for 5, 6 innings.
Hmm.
And generally that's an amazing, amazing stud start. So I have him at 33. Obviously, we're going to find out more in the next one. But I just can't see him just going 70 pitches for every single start the rest of the year. I can't live with that.
I would be stunned if that's the way they approach it. I'd also be obviously pretty frustrated, not just from like, oh, I want him on my fantasy team succeeding. I want to see Crochet continue to build up his innings so that he can have no restrictions
Right.
next year on his new team
Yeah, you
when he
can't
gets
just do
traded in the
this and then
winter.
like you're not there next year. And it's just come on, you gotta get there somewhere. You can't just protect, protect, protect. It doesn't work like that.
Exactly.
Look
It,
at
it
Yuri
just
Perez.
it doesn't work that way. We've seen no advancements in the babying style. Please stop. It is so
Yeah,
frustrating.
yeah, it
All
drives me up
right,
the wall.
let's continue on here. I am a little bit dismayed would be an overstatement, but a little bit curious that Hunter Brown has only risen to 40, given how good he's been now for a while. Now, let me be clear. I don't have him sky high comparatively, but in this range, I would say 8, 9 spots is still a pretty decent jump. So I have him at 32, Hunter Brown. Where's our confidence level with him? You know, he was cuttable early on. I do believe that. I don't think that I'm going to crush folks
Oh, yeah,
that
no,
cut
he
him in
was.
at 10 or
Yeah.
12. But now he's all formats pretty close to must start. What's our confidence level on Hunter Brown now coming down the stretch?
He's a weird one. I remember he had this stretch of 1 earned run in 4 games.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at this now here. That was against the Angels, the Tigers, the White Sox, and Rocky Road. And
Right. It was
actually
amazing.
1 earned run in 5 games, and then it was at Toronto. And you guys know me. I'm very much about the Arsenal, how they get their oats, earn their oats, which should be outs, but whatever, doesn't matter. And for
You're
Hunter
saying,
Brown,
just real quick, you're
yeah,
saying not just the results, you want to know how it's done to know how believable these
exactly.
results
There are
are.
a lot of times we see, I mean, it's why is the Vargas rule. It's like you have
Right.
two guys in the same lines, but like one of them is getting the
Is
most out of
actually
their arsenal,
good.
one of them is not,
Right.
right? And what are the adjustments that we might be seeing? What are the tweaks we might be seeing? How do all the pieces work? How sustainable are those individual pieces, right? And with Hunter Brown, man, as a guy that every single time he starts, I just go into what did you do? What is this? Where are you? The guy doesn't know. It's like I had a pitching front office guy talk to me about one of their players being a canvas every game, and it's just like the paint falls down the canvas, and we just figure it out, you know. And I thought that was a great showcase of like, okay,
That
someone with a
really
lot of
is.
pitches and being like, all right, today I'm gonna go with four seamers. Okay, today I'm gonna go with sinkers over here. Today I'm gonna go with I don't know what's gonna be there, and we're just gonna roll with it. And
Mm-hmm.
to me, that is not the game of an ace. That is
No.
not something that is dependable and sustainable. And I see a lot of really good matchups. I mean, heading into Seattle, against Oakland, against Pittsburgh in this stretch, right? A voiceless Twins where he's still on 700 runs, but
Right.
just a lot of good situations and not really faith in what he's actually doing because I don't really think he knew what he wanted to do. But here he is, last 4 games. He has at least 8 strikeouts in 3 of them. Yes, he had a game against Pittsburgh. Fine. That wasn't very good. But this one in Fenway was different because he's throwing 97.6 now. Like
Mm-hmm.
he was battling with like 95s and 96s a lot. I mean, 96 and change isn't so bad, but when it's 97.6, when you're sitting 97, 98 with a four seamer
That's
that has
another level.
great shape, yeah, hi, cool. And you were also locating it well and then having secondaries underneath. I finally have seen the thing. I'm like, oh, timeout. That, and
Repeat that.
it's
Stop
kind of
doing the
wild.
blank canvas.
So it's the first time in a long time for me that I saw it from Hunter Brown and went, okay, fine. I don't think you're going to be 97.6 the next one. I'm sure there's some adrenaline, something else added to this equation for you to
Sure.
hit your peak sitting velocity. And the idea that you're just going to sit there now is not right. But maybe there is something that's 96.5 as a floor now for Hunter Brown, where he's flirting with 97 and 98 each game. Like that changes a man. So I'm back in on Hunter Brown now. I know it's taken so long. The results have been there when I've been like, but now I actually have a reason, I think, to buy in.
I was a huge Hunter Brown fan, and I will not deny a little bit of confirmation bias when he was popping off. Like, yes, this was the guy I was waiting for.
Yeah.
Also understanding though the hipster vibes that he had. You were describing some hipster vibes there, headache inducing pitcher, stifling the entire roster. That's a little
Right.
Nickism for y'all. I'm using it. But it makes a lot of sense. It's these young guys. I mean, that's where Taj Bradley might be right now. That's where Luis
Mhm.
Gil might be right now. Guys that you want to start, they can be amazing, but they can really hit you hard when they're off. Cherry
Right.
bomb's another term that you
Yeah.
use for that. A lot of times sweet, but when they blow up, they
Ugh.
really get you.
I mean, it does seem like, I mean, there's an argument to be made, right, about if you're a kitchen sink guy, if you have like 4 to 5 pitches that you can constantly throw for strikes in a given game, there is something really to be said about that. Has talked about how stuff plus goes out the window at that point. I mean, Mitch Keller is a cherry bomb to me because it's just, I don't think he has a good fastball in him. I think he has a
Hmm.
good stuff slider. He's not consistent enough with it, and he still has success at times. How does he do that? My theory is that he just throws cutter, sinker, four seamer with a good enough velocity. That's like, where is it going? And
You don't know,
people,
neither do
inside the
I.
zone, sometimes they key in really well, and that's why you see super high ICR marks. That is like ideal contact rate, good stuff for hitters. A lot on those four seamers, but he finds himself in 6, 7 innings because he's able to get outs when there's confusion. And if Hunter Brown turns into that kitchen sink thing, and he's like, cool, I've got this overpowering fastball now that I actually know where to spot, and I can throw enough of these kitchen sink cutters and sliders and curves, then yeah, that works. That is cool. But I just haven't seen it. Like, literally follow the strike zone plots of all the games, guys. I implore you. You can do it on our player pages. You can just hit the all button in the game log and you'll see them. It's all over the place every game. It's just literally the start before this was arm side sinkers. I'm not even
This
kidding.
is
Like, it was
this is like a
insane.
great Hunter Brown is a great example of the margin that good stuff gives you. The
Mm.
margin for error with inconsistent execution of it. And then you talked about that four start run when he was playing four college teams basically, and running through them like a warm knife through butter, because his stuff was so good he didn't have to properly execute or even have
Right.
a great game plan. It's just like, hey, you finally figured out how to not get beat by that four seamer with the sinker. That was the big change that was kind of carrying him. Now they're developing a little bit more detail with it. And hopefully we can find that consistency with Brown. I love where he's at right now. I'm starting him everywhere, but I don't think he's like must start blindly. Don't ever check him. Keep tabs on him. You still don't want to get caught up in the wrong spot necessarily. I mean, he's got the White Sox this week, trip to Baltimore next week. Maybe in a 10-teamer, you're skipping that just because
Right.
you've got other starts that you don't have to take that risk. Not saying he can't succeed there. I really love what he's been doing. Pepio's back. How do we
Yes.
feel about him? Not so much from the talent, which I do care about, but also, are we concerned at all that Tampa Bay plays any games with him down the stretch to kind of
I know.
bother
I
us?
This was so hard. So this is the end of tier 5, right?
He's
And
at
like,
41, by the way. I should point out. Sorry about that.
um, yeah, it's 41 Pepio, 42 Bryce Miller, 43 Shane Baz. And this was so difficult because I'm trying to really understand, like, cool, who are the higher ceiling ones that you do want to
Hmm.
go for? Who are actually the consistent ones who aren't consistent? But then some of the ones that are consistent that have a little bit less strikeout rate that need to be inside of that. Like, it's a mess. And like tier 6, I just was like, look, these are the guys that I think are more 6 inning guys, like Gavin Williams and even Jeffrey Springs, but Kevin Gosman and Christopher Sanchez. Joe Musgrove should be that, Tyler Anderson, right? Those are your Holly types. Those are better than Toby's. They are a step above. You're going to have a guy or two underneath them on your roster. And where do I put Pepio on that? I see Pepio as a potential ace. I think that
So do
his
I.
arsenal is just so good. Four seamer that is elite shape, comes in hard, has intent to go up, which is what the Rays implemented from getting him from the Dodgers. They kept him low. I don't know what their obsession is with low fastballs, but whatever. And the Rays like, no, let's do this upstairs. And it's way better. His slider is coming much better this year. And the changeup was actually the pitch for Pepio in the minors and early on with the Dodgers. So those three things, I remember seeing some games against the Orioles, and it's just so many of these at bats were just bye, that's it. So here I am putting him at 41, saying I think there is a lot more to go after. I might be overrating the fact that he might be toyed around with. I don't know what he's going to be like when he comes back from the IL.
In
I don't
fairness,
know if the
though,
knee is, you can trust it's an infected knee,
right.
and everything like that. So I
It's
don't know.
remarkably difficult to identify that unless the Rays come out and say it, though. So I think we have to go in assuming that Pepio's going to get the allotment that he deserves. And if they flip on us, then we can adjust. But I don't
Right.
know that I'm going to preemptively down Pepio,
Yeah.
potentially make somebody not pick him up if he's available in a 10-teamer
Right.
or not start him, because I'm all systems go until the Rays show me a reason
Yeah,
not
and
to
that
be.
and really honestly, when you think about it, in the past, when we've seen guys who are limited by the Rays, it's from the start of the year.
Exactly.
It's Shane McClanahan, it's Shane McClanahan.
I mean,
Uh,
most of their youngsters coming up, really. I mean, just go through the laundry
Yeah.
list. Even somebody like Springs, when they converted him, it took time
Yeah.
for them to start to build up his innings. Rasmussen as well, coming out of the bullpen. So
Rasmussen, there you go.
we consistently do see them.
But that
I mean,
was
Snell is the
Snell,
main.
obviously. Snell,
Yeah.
there you go. But it was more so, I think, for guys that were in the rotation and they're saying we can't last the entire year like this. We have to
Correct.
do something. But you look at Pepio. Pepio has innings to go, and he needs to be ready for next year. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Rays are like, no, yeah, you're throwing 90 pitches every game. They're like, we need you to get your innings in so that next year we're feeling good with you. So this makes a lot of sense in my view. And now I'm thinking about it this way, like, yeah, no, they're not going to slow him down. They got to get him going. They need to make sure that they're not in this situation again next year. So feeling better about it now. I made a good rank.
No, I feel good about it too. I have him still. Again, we're not always disagreeing on these, more trying to color where you're at with Pepio, and I feel good. All systems go. Let's trust him, and then we'll have the Rays tell us whether or not we are wrong on that.
You might take a start or two. They had like a 3 to 4 inning sim game with them.
Yes.
Phillies NL East something put inside the Twitter chat. And yeah, so they are going to slow him down initially. I think we're talking more about like for all of the next 2 months. Is it going to be just a 5 and dive? I don't think so.
I expect some early stuff, but if it was going to be 4 the rest of the way, or 4 or 5 barely the rest of the way, that's when we had to make a change. But if it's 4, 5 and a third, these first 2, 3 starts, okay. But then if it's all systems go down the stretch, I want the Ryan Pepio I can trust for all of September. Now, I know you didn't get a chance to have this included because he started later that night, but decent return for Joe Musgrove, 4 1/3, 2 hits, a walk, a K. He's still down here. Would you have, if you did the list today, would he move from 48 at all?
Not really. I mean, I'm still waiting. This was 63 pitches. He gets 75 probably against the Rockies and Coors next. I mean, if I have him on my team, I don't know if I'm activating him yet.
I didn't want to start him this week with the Coors bomb waiting on the weekend, personally.
So it's also weird. I don't know how to feel about Coors still, because that offense is just so bad.
But it can catch you. Here's the thing. For me, it's not that you can never succeed there. We've seen guys go in there and run them out. It's that the 10 earned run bomb is always lurking. And on August 18th, whenever that starts going to go off this weekend, I cannot afford that.
Sure.
April 18th, I take more chances, personally. I know like it still hits, but I have the rest of the season to try to work it off. Coming down the stretch here, I can't take any risky Coors starts.
That's and so, man, watch Musgrove have a bomb there. I'm like, oh my gosh, look, that would. That's a very.
I did not want to start him this week because
75 pitches does limit the ceiling, of course.
Exactly.
Musgrove is a guy that can be efficient enough to still go 5+, even 6
absolutely
75, definitely. But it's not really a thing I would go for. And also, there were some reports. Samolsky mentioned on the Corner podcast yesterday about Musgrove saying, "Hey, look, he's throwing harder in his minor league starts." And he didn't when he appeared yesterday. So maybe it was just kind of like ease into it, be fine. He'll get ramped up and be okay. I don't know. I don't know what to make of Musgrove right now. I hope that he's going to be healthy and ready to go and feel confident. But I feel we need more data first. So I'm probably just going to leave him at 48 for now.
I think that is totally fine. I also am not moving him off of anything yesterday. And I also have him similarly ranked to you here in the late 40s, right? So
look at us. Where are you on Tobias Myers?
Okay, I like that name. That's an interesting name to pull up here. I have Tobias Myers right in that same group.
Get out of here.
Just behind. I have found some trust in Tobias Myers here. And I don't know. I just realized his name is Toby, because I was about to say I do get caught up sometimes loving Toby's. We talk about it all the time. It is a big distinction between our 15 and 12 team outlooks, but I've just been super impressed with him. I didn't know who this guy was coming in the year. I won't lie.
Yeah, I didn't
I
either.
did not know who Tobias Myers was. And for them to have found something here, it is funny that he came from the White Sox in 2022 as if they couldn't use him. I know it's not dominant, and I know that he's not a 2.79 ERA true talent guy. But the Sierra and Phipps being in the low fours, 4 exactly on the Sierra, I could utilize that. 4 whip with like a 112 whip, or excuse me, 4 ERA with a 112 whip and win potential because he's on a great team like Milwaukee. That's useful for me. So even the regressed Tobias Myers has value in 15 teamers. That's why I've fallen in love with him a bit as somebody to pick up this year and stream pretty consistently. He's been a team streamer for me. I've just been kind of in and out on the roster when I see fit.
He's so interesting to me because if you guys don't know Tobias Myers, he's certainly a kitchen sink guy.
I was going to say
5 pitches,
term definition of it.
Cutter, slider, changeup, curve. 4 of those are at least 10% thrown. It is 41% fastball, 4-seamer. High strike rate, like 73% strike rate, which is bonkers. And the fact that he's able to get a 2.06 BABIP on that pitch is everything. And how's he doing that? He has elite IVB on this. It's I think like 90th percentile IVB. So this 4-seamer that comes in at 93 or so. It is getting 18 inches of vert. He has good amount of extension, like 6.7. That's good. We're happy with that. And actually a decent, slightly above average attack angle. So it makes for a 4-seamer that has a 5.3 PLV, believe it or not, despite the 93 mile per hour velocity, because he throws lots of strikes with it. And then what happens is that the cutter is really, it's confounding because it looks a lot like this fastball. It's just a 4 mile per hour difference. And he throws that in the zone a lot too. So between those 2 pitches, the cutter is kind of like the, oh, thank you, this is not having the same vert. And he's actually allowed a lot of hits off of this pitch. He has 10 more hits and hit luck off that cutter than we expected, 360 BABIP. But this is how it works. Just by having that cutter, that 4-seamer is surviving so much more. And then the slider is pretty nasty, 16% swing strike rate with a 67% strike rate, which is great. You get whiffs with it and you get constant strikes. And then if you remember the old money pitch thing, right? The zone rate O-swing. O-swing is only 35%, but that was trying to really get at, are you getting strikes and are they whiffs? Right. That's what the money pitch was. Okay. I just didn't have strike rate at the time, Sporer, with old pitch FX in 2016.
It was awesome. It was awesome from what, and now it could be even better because you would have more access to data.
This is why I created the Pitcherless site, Sporer, because I needed more granular pitch data. Okay. And then the changeup is actually, I think, the biggest place that he can really excel because it's only 49%.
This is Tobias Myers we're still talking about. Sorry, we've hit a lot of pronouns on him.
Really low ICR, 26%, which is understood because it's only 26% zone rate. So if you throw it out of the zone, you're not going to get good contact allowed for hitters because they can't hit it. It's on the zone. But this looks like an Estrada change. Like it's an 81.
Ooh, great reference. Marco Estrada.
It just the air gets sucked out of it. Like it's not one of those like giant fade ones. It just kind of gets there.
I love that description. The air gets sucked out of it and just
and you can feel the batter go ugh as they try and swing and slow themselves down. They can't. So Tobias Myers, to me, it kind of works. It like I see it all. It's not at its peak. He is certainly getting fortunate here. I mean, he has an 87% left on base rate.
Let me throw in a couple things in addition to what Tobias Myers is doing. What about this brilliant defense? Because Justin and I have taken to calling it, Freddie Peralta and a merry band of goofs with, not too much offense meant to those other guys, but that's not a name group with Colin Ray, Tobias Myers, Aaron Savali's not even adding to the mix, Frankie Montas, the other guys that they've had contribute this year, Bryce Wilson, Joe Ross, et cetera, et cetera. But Nick, not only do they have William Contreras behind the dish, brilliantly framing things, but they've got an excellent defense supporting them. So you talked about how good that fastball is at limiting hits for Tobias Myers. Is there anything that he does with the fastball to make it easier to field, or are they just great fielders that also dominate for him with Adames and Ortiz on the left side?
So when you see a high vert pitcher, you should be thinking more fly balls. And it's actually kind of even, which is a little interesting. That it's
good outfield defense too.
Yeah.
Choriel, Mitchell, Frelick is very good out there too.
And this is very much of a blind spot for me is infield defenses because it's always a thing in the beginning of the year. I'm like, man, if you guys can tell me who's going to be the number one defense,
Oh,
just get those guys.
exactly.
So it's kind of interesting, actually. I wouldn't say that the players on these teams the pitchers are just overly exceptional, like doing so much better than they should. There are some names here. I'm actually going to mention those after this break. So the top 5 teams in outs above average. This is actually going to blow your mind, I think. First one's Rangers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I'm thinking about those guys. I'm like, I guess Heaney was a little bit interesting at times. Cody Bradford maybe a little bit. I mean, Eovaldi, sure. But is there anything that's just like, what? Oh, that explains that guy? Not really.
No.
I wouldn't say that. Royals are number 2.
That explains everything.
Lugo.
There's your Seth Lugo. There's your Singer. I know he wasn't as good yesterday.
Actually, Singer in a major way. Yes.
Absolutely. And I think they had a decent defense 2 years ago when he was good too and maximizing everything about him. Mm-hmm. But their defense is good infield, outfield, all of it. And so I'm not surprised by any of the extra success that is being generated from that pitching staff from the Kansas City defense. It's been fantastic.
Yeah. The Diamondbacks is one that we did expect. Mm-hmm. And it does explain a little bit of Ryan Nelson. And we'll get to him maybe later on in this one. Brewers are 4th, as we just mentioned. The Blue Jays are 5th.
That's
that one.
Curious.
Yeah.
I mean,
Astros are 10th. Huh.
You know, I don't know if I believe. I'm sputtering for words here because I just don't think I believe. I mean, I believe that the data is. I guess it's like who leads their defense. Who leads the Toronto
to players
defense?
Left is 13. To players right, it's 0.
Interesting.
So
I know
to left would be like
good.
third base,
right?
And maybe second base, more, and then like left fielder or center fielder.
Okay.
I don't know. That's all I got.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so they've got kind of it doesn't matter because they've also mixed in guys too.
There. Tobias
but anyway,
it's a great point.
So I think the Milwaukee defense absolutely helps them. I will say the framing, at least their rating this year, hasn't been as strong with William Contreras only ranking in at 14th. Well, the team at 14th, so that includes the backup catcher, Gary Sanchez. But I can't imagine that Sanchez is pulling him way down from like 2nd to 14th. So they haven't been as good on the framing, but the defense has been excellent. Tobias Myers has really been intriguing this year, and I'm still working with him. It's like an extended Vargas rule type vibe to it, where I definitely have some concerns, and if I wasn't in 15 teamers, I don't think I'd be as aggressively, recommending Tobias Myers, but I do like what he's been able to do.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's continue on. Let's stick in one more in this tier, just because he had another start yesterday that I am curious if it would change your outlook, and that is, of course, somebody who faced Tobias Myers' team, Clayton Kershaw. He had the solid outing to start, beat up by San Diego that people greatly overreacted to, solid against Philly, and then a great 5 2/3 yesterday at Milwaukee. Where we at on Kersh? Would he move up if you redid the list today?
I think so a little bit because the last start we saw last night on Monday for Clayton Kershaw was honestly, that was more classic Kershaw of slider.
Correct.
Man. That was, thank you. I think I have a phrase now called dancing with the disco, which is a pitcher throws just sliders over the plate and just says, whatever, I can do this. That's Anthony DeSclafani.
I was about to say, is that a reference to Anthony DeSclafani?
That's what he would do.
I knew it.
Here's a slider. 40% of the time. And
a pretty good slider. I'll try it.
But it wouldn't be like spotted. It would just be a scatter plot of it. It's like
right.
Simmons Wood Richardson has done that a bit this year. We've seen it from Zach Littell this year. We've seen a lot of guys do this. And Kershaw kind of did it a bit. He didn't really have precision on it. It was just like a lot of sliders over the plate and still really good sliders, so fine. This was down in glove side as it used to be, underneath bats really effectively, getting a lot of outs on it and foul balls. And this is much more of the slider than I'm used to. That allowed him to get more of the curveball over the plate for strikes, which he did very well, 63% in yesterday's start. So Clayton Kershaw to me looking more like a more stable, 83 pitches. Fine. Do I see him as ace potential? No. I see him really just climbing up this tier. So he's at the bottom of the 52. I could see him closer to 45 now. Okay. I don't think it's enough to say that he's in the realms of like Zach Eflin, Framber Valdez, Logan Webb or something. and I'm not going to put him in tier 5, which is like true ace potential.
Is
So I see
there
him in 550 moving forward, but it's it's better from Kershaw. That's good. I don't think
is
he's
there
going
a
to be able
path
to like 30%
back
hit rate.
to all
I
the
don't
way up there?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think the command has been deteriorating a bit for Kershaw over the years,
Right.
and he's not the same guy, especially without the velocity. It's going to be a little bit more wonky than he used to be. He's fighting too much with his mechanics. It's annoying.
Okay. I don't think that's unfair with regards to Clayton Kershaw. I definitely think he's somebody that you're starting pretty consistently right now, just with a lower expectation set. I think that's
Yep.
fair.
Yeah.
Spencer Arrighetti leads off tier 7 right now, and a lot of Houston's ascent, I think, has been credited to the offense. Kind of rallying around not having Kyle Tucker. Renel Blanco's been great all year. Framber Valdez has regained his footing, and Hunter Brown, as we talked about earlier, has really turned it around. So I think those are all factors, but Spencer Arrighetti actually finding a little something here lately
Yeah.
I think is at least just as intriguing. Now the season stats don't show it with a 5.14 ERA, but he's been markedly better than that of late. Are we seeing anything in Spencer Arrighetti that we should be trusting down the stretch with Houston?
Well, I'm going to ask you this. How do you feel about the other Spencer? Schwellenbach. I call him Mr. Crescendo because it's a swelling Bach.
I like that. I quite like Schwelly. I've been a big fan of what he's been able to do. Just kind of everything that we're seeing from him with the command and control, with the swing and miss, like everything seems to be there. I'm pretty excited about Schwellenbach right now.
Yeah. I mean, do you have him as high as I do? I have him inside the top 40 right now.
Oh, I'm right there. 41.
Of course.
You got me clipped.
Love it. Love it. Okay, yeah. I mean, so I see them in some ways similarly because these are young guys that we didn't really think too much about. There were some whispers of Arrighetti in the off season,
right?
But it was just kind of where's the path to it? Does he have a good enough fastball? Is the stuff there? Is he wild or not? I don't know. And what we've seen from both are opportunity for winning clubs, and we've seen these double-digit strikeout games with good whiffs. And with Schwellenbach, I think there was a clearer showcase of like, this is going to get better in my view of just look, he has a really good kitchen sink. He throws more strikes. The four-seamer, I think, has more promise, or at least at being commanded. And the whiffs are very much there. While with Arrighetti, arguably a better four-seamer for shape. And if he does do exactly what he's trying to do, he's going to be better than Schwellenbach. Schwellenbach is smart enough to at least say, hey, 20, 25% fastballs. Okay, cool. I don't need to do this all the time. But Arrighetti is absolutely more chaotic. And even watching that game against the Red Sox is kind of wild. He had 13 strikeouts in 7 innings and didn't get his strikeout until the end of the second, which is just wild. It was like 5 1. I think it was 5 1/3 of 13 strikeouts or something like that, which is just nuts. But with Arrighetti, I got very much of the feeling of like, is this going to work right now? And it doesn't quite go where he wants to. But look, he has enough of a kitchen sink. He's got the curve, the sweeper. He's got a changeup in there that showed a few times and was filthy when it worked. And a cutter that it does get for strikes. And then this four-seamer that he does. I don't know if it's going to be in the zone enough. Like the games that we saw that were really bad from Arrighetti were just not in the zone enough. And it's just like, oh, well, good. Or it's just really down and like that doesn't work for you. Arrighetti has to be up. I think that he can be an ace if he's able to actually spot those things and execute a Blake Snell blueprint properly. But I don't have any faith that he really will, at least in the short term. So I see these 2 games that wasn't even him actually in it fully, and it worked out well. And I don't think that is going to stick. Schwellenbach, I feel more safe with because I do trust his command overall.
That's where I'm at too. I definitely have more interest and trust in Schwelly right now, but Arrighetti has definitely risen up to a level where he's getting recommended a lot more consistently. I love the win potential being on a good team, and that for me will cover too, right? So even if I think he's going to, regress off of this recent run and maybe not be as consistent, if I can get a low 4s ERA with some win potential, even in 12 teamers, I might take the ERA hit to chase wins. And your standings will dictate that for you as well. All right, let's talk about, we kind of have to. We got to talk about the 2 Red Sox, Cutter Crawford and Tanner Houck, who are also in this tier. I know, me neither. So where's your confidence level? Are we still in a situation where maybe we're sitting them, but we're not cutting them? Or is there any league type where you might be cutting either Crawford or Houck?
Well, here, okay. So first of all, I've already cut Hauk. I already did
Okay.
it. Even the last start against the Rangers, it was 1 strikeout, and he had threw 9 splitters, and that's
Mm-hmm.
really to me been the biggest change this year is the fact that he has this weapon against lefties, and he's just like, yeah, no, I'm good. And his slider, you would think like, oh, if you're throwing 9 splitters, that means the slider must be really good. It was 50% strikes. That is supposed to be the filling up the zone 70% strike rate slider that is just so good that establishes everything else. And to have that after a road of struggles for Hauk is just, oh, we are not there. Now he goes into Baltimore, and then he's going to go against Houston, then it's Toronto. And it's just, I don't want to deal with it. And
I don't either.
considering that there are, I think, a lot of intriguing streams to go after these days, there are guys like Martin Perez who are doing really well, and Jose Quintana even that's doing this. We're talking about Spencer Arrighetti here. Grant Holmes is very fascinating. Eric Cabrera actually, I think, is starting to showcase really fun stuff. I
Right.
felt I was in a situation where if you're investing in September, you might want to hold on to Hauk. If you're trying to get something now through September, you might not want to. So I don't think that Hauk is completely donezo. I think it's a rough
Agreed.
stretch right now, and he comes back around. Same with Cutter Crawford, but it is really difficult. You got to weigh in and treat the last 2 months like it's the start of the year and just compress everything. So then if you tell me, hey, look, I'm on a fantasy team, you're going to have this guy that you think is going to be pretty good, but you're not going to start him for a third of the year. Are you going to do that, or 25% of the year? Like, that's kind of the mentality you got to start having. Is it going to be that much better for me to be able to leaning in on this? Because I don't want to start Cutter Crawford against Texas and Baltimore. I don't want to start Hauk against
Right.
Baltimore and Houston. I don't want to start Pavetta against Texas and Houston. Like, absolutely could do well in at least one of those each, but it's far riskier than I want.
Yeah, the confidence level in both Hauk and Crawford has just absolutely plummeted. It's unfortunate, but it's just where we're at right now, and you do have to be careful. I like that point about if you like for the immediate, be careful with both. But if you think a little bit further, I could see either getting back on track. So if you can afford to just bench Crawford and Hauk, and you don't have to get that roster spot back, then yes, wait. But if push is coming to shove in a 10-teamer shallow league, I do see a world where maybe they've been cuttable, which is
Yeah.
crazy to say, given how well both had been pitching
Absolutely.
at
So
points.
one
This year.
more before we get to the game, Sporer. Who you got? Who you want to talk
One
about?
more. Got to be a guy going today, Zebby Matthews. I've
Oh my
talked about
gosh.
this before. I love your courage to slot the guy right away. Hey, I believe in this guy. I'm not going to soft pedal it, rank him 98 so that people might miss on him. I'm going to throw him up where I think he can be. 57 is where you got Zebby Matthews. It might not be there right away, but you're telling people you like this guy. He's got great numbers. He's got kind of the Minnesota build. Good Ks, good walk rate, bad home runs. Where are we at on Zebby Matthews?
I mean, you kind of have to. Zebby Matthews has had just the most ridiculous caper walk this year.
Right?
And watching him, he throws 95, 96 with command upstairs. Like, he is a legit command guy who happens to also have a true 5-pitch mix and throws 95, 96. And like, what?
What?
His slider is really good. Is a 5.6 PLV in the minors with us, which is relative to major league talent.
Mm-hmm.
He has a bridge cutter for strikes. He has a big curveball. He has a changeup too. 4-seamer is good shape. Like, yeah, I want this guy. I want this guy everywhere. And I look at, again, it is startling in my ranks because a lot of people just treat them like flat rest of season, and that is
Right.
absolutely not what I do. I'm saying this is tier 7. This is the tier of the cherry bombs and the Spice Girls, and the Spice Girls are the guys who want to be aces, like the Spice Girls, and they also, you'll probably forget 4 out of 5 of their names soon enough. They're Spice Girls. But Zebby is certainly one of them because we're talking about Hauken, Pavetta, Walker Buehler's in here. We don't know if that's going to work out or not. Edward Cabrera, Grant Holmes, who I'm very intrigued by the way. But the question is just, okay, how long is this going to last? Reynaldo Lopez maybe coming back too. Is he
Exactly
going to be able to do enough with the fastball, I think, to make sure that the slider and the curve can really excel? But I think he's a talented guy. Is Jake Irvin going to be again a thing? I don't think so. Maybe, I don't know. And then underneath that is all
we
your
talked about him
Tobies
last
like,
week.
fine. Like Chris Bassett and Nestor Cortez and Keller and Eduardo Rodriguez and Sean Manaea types, like that will always kind of be there to me. And I might as well just go after in a 12-teamer. You don't want to be average. You don't want a team of Tobies. You got to get the guys that actually really push the needle. And you got to take those stupid chances sometimes. And that's how I feel. And Zebby Matthews could be one of those. So I pushed them into 57 lane. I'm like, look, you got to take a chance here on Zebby Matthews. I spent, I think, equivalent of $120 in Fab. for him in my legacy league, pitcherless legacy league, because like I think that this could be a guy that really makes an impact on the stretch, especially with the Twins in the situation that they're in. They just lost Joe Ryan. Like they
and they're
need something big here.
And again, he does a Joe Ryan cutout. The K's are there. The swing and miss is there. He doesn't walk anybody, and he's got a little bit of a home run issue once he hit AAA. Like, I'm not saying the Arsenal. I'm talking statistical profile only, but this has been the Minnesota profile. We want great component numbers, strikeouts and walks. You live in the zone, so you might be a little homer prone, but if you're not allowing homers, you're a god. So again, I love when you have that aggressiveness on rookies to tell people, go get this guy, even if you don't start him right away. Like I had him as a sit today because I want to play wait and see, but I don't want people to
MLB debuts.
Yes, because we just don't know where the adrenaline can be channeled into success sometimes, or it can be channeled into a 3-inning, 5-walk outing. We just have no idea.
Had a bad MLB debut. That's like the best example I can give.
That we need to be using that example for the next couple of years, because that's what easy to just say, look what he did after and before and during his debut. So I'm with you there, but I love that one on Zebby Matthews. I co-sign the aggressiveness of going out and getting him and seeing where this goes.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Also, Ryan Nelson, where are you on him?
I'm feeling a lot better about him. I've actually watched his last 3 starts, and
he just dominates in the upper third.
He is just a guy that, like, he's shown these glimpses before, and so every time he kind of gets it going again, I jump back in. I know maybe I'm being a sucker there, but I think it's going to click at some point. Yeah, because he keeps showing these inklings of top tier talent, and I really like what Arizona's doing. And now you talk about win potential. They're winning a ton too, so you can get some cheap wins even if he isn't at his peak.
Absolutely. And what's really funny with Ryan Nelson is in the spring at First Pitch Florida, I remember it was NL Labor. And I remember telling 3 different people, being like, all right, it's a reserve rounds. You got to get Ryan Nelson. And I think it was Frank Stanfield who took Trevor McGill or Tyler McGill instead. I was just like, no. And obviously Ryan Nelson's gone back and forth. And now he's actually kind of doing something else with this. His velocity is back. Also, the slider cutter was more appealing in the spring, and then it went away, and it's kind of coming back now. I think that next year is the year I'm really back in on Ryan Nelson, because I feel like he's going to develop one more time to get that slider and cutter going. And once those are legitimate pitches for him, this is it. This is like it's an elite 4-seamer. I didn't realize how elite it was. I didn't either. Is like 125 on him consistently. That is absurd. That's essentially not quite a Stuff Plus version of us, but it's essentially a good showcase of like, is this a good 4-seamer or not? Yes, it is. Okay, cool. So I like Ryan Nelson. It's just a question of like, is he gonna still be in that rotation because it's now 6-man and they don't want a 6-man? And if Jordan Montgomery shoves against the Rockies, they might be like, all right, Ryan Nelson, you had a good fun time. We're gonna slow you down for next year or something. Well, I don't know. I hope not.
I hope not, but from like a real life winning standpoint, making him a 2-3 inning guy out of the bullpen to get to their back end would also make them really strong for the future, or for the stretch run here. So I don't want that to happen for our fantasy purposes, but that would be nice for Ryan Nelson. I want to go with
like Kelly and Gallen and Eduardo Rodriguez and Jordan Montgomery and there's one
and Fogg, Brandon Fogg, right? Yeah, and then they're going to move Nelson into a 2-3 inning. That's my guess.
Yeah.
It'd be good for them, bad for us.
Yeah, right. So we got to go over our games. We're going to do that, of course, after this break. All right, Spore. So I did this for you. I got you.
I appreciate it. Pick me up.
No, that was really easy. I knew all of them off the top of my head. No
problem. 2 minutes before I'm about to sign on, my internet goes out. I'm like, what the heck happened? I figured out what it was. I knew what it was. When I raise my desk, sometimes it unplugs something. So I configure everything. I think it's going to work. It didn't work. So I am freaking out. I'm like, we need to go live because we didn't used to do this live. So I could just be like, oh, Nick, I need 10 minutes. But I'm sitting there scrambling. So I didn't even get to do everything. So thank you for scoring the board. Where are we at?
Okay, so we are at last week. It was I, Martin Perez. You had Jose Soriano as our streamers, both to Ching. You got sit of the week. I said Tanner Houck against Houston. He actually did all right. Like
surprisingly,
the stuff wasn't good, but fine. So I don't get that one. But Christopher Sanchez did not do well against Arizona. So you got a win there. Starter of the week, I had River Ryan. I didn't look at the DraftKings points, but like he went 4.2 innings and then got pulled. There's no way 4.2 innings that he got 15 points. I would assume. It's too bad because he was looking good.
He was looking
fine.
So good. And
Jameson Time did not do well against the White Sox. So that is a no for both of us there. And the 1-game matchup, it was Garrett Cole versus Anthony Evaldi.
How many points do you have to have? Because River Ryan had 16 points.
Yeah!
You get it, baby. Yes! You get it.
Oh my gosh, River Ryan, star of the week, the guy that goes and is out for the year after it starts.
But because he didn't allow a single walk and no runs. There you go.
That's hilarious. All right.
That's amazing. Woo. So we're tied now.
Get it. And then Garrett Cole versus Nathan Eovaldi. Garrett Cole was the greatest Garrett Cole, and Nathan Eovaldi left the game with side tightness.
Right, and then went back to Texas early.
You got that one too. So all right, I got 2 here. So now the final score right now, at least the score, it's 32-30. Sporer is in the lead by 2. Unreal. We're gonna do, if you guys don't know this, it is streamers. It is Sit of the Week, Star of the Week, 1-game matchup. We've been doing this all year. It's really fun because it's 32-30, and it's anybody's game at this point. So we're gonna do streamers, and how we do that is it has to be 20% or less rostered, and they need to earn at least 10 DraftKings points for us to get a win on that. So for this week, I'm gonna go with Grant Holmes at Oracle Park. I know the Giants have been a little bit better. I probably could do something a little safer, like maybe Martin Perez against his revenge team against the Pirates. I just like Grant Holmes, and I have fun with this. I call him the real estate broker because he grants homes. But you have him against the Giants. That's my stream pick of the week. I think his overall Arsenal's good chance for a win with Atlanta. Who do you got as your streaming pick?
I'm taking a little bit of a gamble. This one's tough. I like your Grant Holmes pick, by the way. And if Raylo does have to remain out, I do think that he can be more than adequate for them as their guy, Grant Holmes. Remember, he was a big-time prospect, so he's kind of a late bloomer here. But I'm going with Nick Martinez, a guy I've liked in the past. Really was off of him in this spring when he went to Cincinnati just by virtue of going to Cincinnati, and has been up and down, but he's finding a groove here of late. His last 2 starts at Miami, at Milwaukee, so 1 tough, 1 easy. He's been great in both, and he was better at Milwaukee, and they're a very difficult team. He threw 7 one-hit innings of shutout ball with 7 strikeouts, no walks. Really, really like what we've been seeing out of Nick Martinez lately. KC's tough. They definitely scare me, but I'm going to take a shot on Nick Martinez.
Yeah, he's a fun one. Also, his changeup wasn't thrown that much in the last one. His changeups is, I think, his best pitch. So
I think it's in most nights you're going to be talking about that as his best pitch. I firmly agree with that.
One. Sit of the week. It's 50% rostered or more on Fantasy Pros. I hate yours, and you're going to tell everybody what that is.
It's Garrett Crochet. I know we just talked about him. No! I know I just said don't get rid of him. But,
sorry, Fireside. I apologize.
You probably should start him. And remember, we always talk about with these starts that we're looking for somebody, but we're not necessarily pulling the trigger on it. Maybe it's more of like a DFS fade, or if you're in a deep enough league, if you have enough juice, maybe you can. I'm probably not actually sitting him, but looking for somebody that you could actually sit on the high end. I have to pick Garrett Crochet in Houston. They've just been too good lately.
This is what he needed, everyone. Okay. I called the last roundup the wet crochet blanket, and you are that right now for him.
Right.
And he's going
to stick it in my eye. And I'm okay with that.
Let it loose, Crochet.
What do we always say?
We both want these guys. Exactly.
We're always okay taking the L because we don't really want to root against guys, but we are trying to pick a start that could actually go south.
Let's all thank Sporer for his sacrifice.
Yes.
We have Mitch Keller at the Padres for me. I think that Mitch Keller is just... The Padres are really good. I think as an offense, this is just kind of set up, especially in San Diego in the summer, which is more home run heavy. I just think that Mitch Keller is going to get smacked. And he's at 83% rostered, I think, something ridiculous like that, 80 plus. So for me, I saw that. I'm like, yeah, okay, I wouldn't do Mitch Keller. I think he's... So there you go. Star of the week.
Let me get your star here first, real quick.
Oh, yeah. Star of the week is someone that you've certainly turned to a decent amount on this podcast. And that is JP Sears against the Giants. I'm just going against the Giants for whatever reason. This is an Oko. And also, JP Sears has done so well finally for 3 straight starts, having his 4-seamer upstairs, and he's had success with it. And it's the thing I've been waiting so long for him to do, but then he's also pairing it with a changeup. And if you saw my tweet earlier today, if you look at all of the elite southpaws, say for maybe Chris Sale, who just has an amazing slider, but also does have this pitch, all of them have an elite changeup. Changeup is the equivalent of a righty slider, essentially, because you face more right-handers. What is the pitch that nullifies them? It's changeups from a lefty or sliders from a righty. And the fact that JP Sears has also had this changeup working arm side as well on top of that 4-seamer staying upstairs, this might be kind of the time. And I'm taking star of the week very literally here because I feel as if this is going to start propelling him into people getting like, wait a second, kind of the same way of like we did with, I don't know, maybe Arrighetti or Schwellenbach or something like that. Probably not that severity, but This is the idea. It's under 50% rostered. Fantasy Pros, you need to score at least 15 points in this one. Who is your pick for this?
Yeah, by the way, I just want to say I've been on the Sears train for a little while, been really interested in what he can do. When they made the trade over there, I thought that was a good trade. I do believe in him. So I really think he can do something here with Oakland, and even down the stretch into next year. I like that pick there. I'm actually going to go with a trip to Coors, which you rarely want to do that as your star of the week, but I'm going to take Matt Waldron into Coors and think that his, interesting fastball knuckleball combo there can find some success. Now, we don't know how the ball is going to be moving, and we know that Coors can limit how pitches move. But I'm going to take my shot on Matt Waldron. I love what he's been able to do this year. He's been a really nice stabilizing force in those 12s and up, as a team streamer in 12s and as a pretty consistent starter in 15s. I know Miami got to him. They've actually beat up a few players recently that have been surprising because you never expect them to do well. But I think Matt Waldron can go into Colorado. Again, by the way, he did 6 innings, 1 run earlier in the year. I think he can do it again and pull another rabbit out of his hat in Coors.
Nice. Best of luck. Don't trust a knuckleballer. So...
and don't trust them in Coors, obviously. Yeah. Be terrified.
I hope it works out. Baseball's better with a knuckleballer. So the one game matchup, I've got an interesting one for you, Sporer. And this is kind of tough because you have one guy who's shown some cracks in the armor, and the other who's away from his luscious home park. And I'm going to let you choose whoever you want here.
That's kind of you.
This is going to be Logan Gilbert in Pittsburgh against Paul Skeens.
You read my mind. This is why we're best friends. I literally was just typing it on the sheet. You did not put anything in for the game of the matchup. No, and I was typing in Paul Skeens right now. I wish you had been seeing me do that. I'm taking Skeens because I got to take another a mustachioed Paul S. But oh my God, that's the exact matchup that I had honed in on. I cannot believe how locked in we are on that.
That's funny because also Logan Gilbert is worse out of Seattle. There's a whole thing about the strikeouts going up through the roof in Seattle right now. And maybe it is worse in Pittsburgh. But yeah, I'll take Logan Gilbert. Sure. That sounds great.
Yeah, I could go either way, but if it wasn't another mustachioed Paul S, I might be more open to running the other way on it.
Very fun one. Other ones that I kind of consider, there's Hayden Birdsong against Osvaldo Bido, which sounds hilarious, but it's like,
no, I saw that one.
Kind of good.
So weird. Wild how we get dialed in on the random stuff too, because I looked at that one as well. I was like, that could be interesting.
Look at that. There's also even you could make an argument for Gavin Stone against Sonny Gray because Sonny Gray's getting against the Dodgers and Gavin Stone's getting the Cardinals. Anyway, Sporer, this has been a fantastic time. All of you watching right now, we have over 2,100 people on Twitter right now. So thank you all so much for watching. Sporer had no idea. He can't see the eye. Thank you all so much. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel where this podcast, actually last week's too, will be present. And it's a lot easier to, of course, comment during it. So just go look up Fireside Chat on YouTube. I put it inside of my Twitter handle as well. Or Twitter account. Sporer, tell the good people what you're working on right now.
Well, I'll be putting the finishing touches on these rankings. They'll be going out on August 13th, no later than the evening, right before I put out the daily SP charts. So you can chop those up. I got my chat tomorrow on the 14th, so you can come talk about them with me and ask me any questions that you have. I got the daily SP chart, Sleeper and the Buzz podcast, and of course the OOTP content for Out of the Park Baseball's Perfect Team Edition. We do Tuesday and Thursday releases this week. So about an hour after this, I'm going to eat lunch and then go drop some content there for Out of the Park Baseball.
Fantastic. Over here, we are doing these live shows for On the Corner, Fireside Chat, and The Craft. And so tomorrow, my guest will be Enosaurus at noon. On Wednesday, I'll be back here on Twitter doing this. But of course, we do have a YouTube channel for that as well. As we're starting to roll out a lot of these podcasts inside the Pitch List Podcast Network on YouTube. So I'm really excited about that. And so go check that out I can't believe I got Eno on that show. It's absolutely wild. Anyway, that is it for today. I want to thank all of you watching live on Twitter and on YouTube for joining us once again by the fire.